Hello. This video is going to show from 10,000 feet, so to speak, how to integrate the Typesense search engine into a Docusaurus website. Typesense, as you probably know, is an open source search engine, and Docusaurus is a popular documentation platform for presenting online help and other kinds of information in a web-based format. Now, we're doing this in today's example. We're showing you how to do all the tasks you need in order to integrate these two systems in a standalone environment. The standalone environment is a Windows 10 PC where much of the software that we're going to be integrating is going to be started on WSL, that is to say Windows Subsystem for Linux, in a with a Debian distribution. Since we're going to be doing all these things with regard to Docusaurus, we're going to use one of these windows here to start Docusaurus. We have a special project here that's been adapted from the Docusaurus tutorial package, which is available in the Docusaurus website. And we're going to be starting that right now. We're going to run this on port 80. We're doing this on port 80 because the Typesense scraper, which we'll be using later on, works most effectively and is guaranteed to work essentially when Docusaurus is running on port 80 as opposed to port 3000, which is the port that it usually runs on, well, its default port setting. Okay, so we've kicked off Docusaurus right there. Now, you've heard a lot about Typesense, but now let's take a look at the Typesense server.ini file, which is installed automatically when you install Typesense. This is what it looks like. Okay, the two key things here that you have to keep in mind for the later configuration, for the later integration, are the value for the API key and the value for the API port. 8108 and this long string here, okay? This API key is generated automatically, and as Typesense will tell you, there are other keys that you can generate by using this key, but that's the subject of a different video. So we're going to move out of this file right here, and now we're going to move ahead and kick off the Typesense server. This is a long command, as you can see there. It's installed in WSL, and as you can see, the API key that we saw earlier is duplicated there in order for the server to recognize itself, essentially. There it goes. What you see coming up here is the Docusaurus page, and there it is. Okay, Docusaurus is running, and if you're familiar with the tutorial that I talked about earlier, you can see that it's very similar, in fact, to that tutorial. We're going to set that aside for the moment, and now we're going to go over and take a look at our third WSL window right over here. This is where we're going to run the scraper. Now, there's many ways to run the scraper, but the way that I found most effective in my own situation in generating a standalone integration of Docusaurus and of Typesense was to use the Typesense DocSearch scraper image that's available for Docker, available through Docker. It's very easy to pull this, very easy to set up Docker on your personal computer and pull the Typesense DocSearch scraper image. Now, there's a couple other things you have to do, though, that can be a bit challenging or are not exactly intuitive. There's two files you have to pass to that image when you're running it through Docker. And one of them is the Docusaurus, well, I'm calling it Docusaurus.json, but it can be called anything. It's a JSON file that you have to create that defines exactly what and where and how the website will be scraped. Okay? The first value here, the first property here is index name. All that is just the name of the, I guess, index, or in Typesense they call it a collection, where the data that you scraped is stored. Start URL, that's pretty straightforward. this basically indicates the host of Docker, the host of where you're running Docker. Docker is being run on my system, and that's all this means. It means essentially localhost with port 80 understood implicitly. JS render is very important for scraping Docusaurus because that basically says that yes, any JavaScript generated text is also to be scraped. It means a bit more than that. That's my definition. Typesense has a slightly different, perhaps a better way of putting that, and you can by all means, to learn more about that, consult the Typesense website. These other things, selectors basically say that you should get the text inside these different HTML tags, and the strip characters means to ignore, the scraper should ignore certain characters and not bother indexing them. Over here, though, we have another file, and this is basically where certain environment variables that the Typesense image will be using as it processes, as it does its work. These are environment variables that are passed so that it can access the Typesense server that's located on the host. Host docker.internal is repeated here. It's just another way of telling the Docker image that, okay, certain things are being run on the host machine, such as the Typesense host, and the Typesense key that's passed to the Typesense that's running on our PC has to have a key defined so that the communication between the Docker image and this Typesense server can take place. The port, this is the same value that we saw earlier in the Typesense server.ini file, and protocol is obviously HTTP. So these files are defined, and they're sitting in this directory here, Docker settings. The command to launch this image from the command line is right in front of you there. It has to be run from the command line because that's where these two files are specified. One, the environment variable file that we just saw, environment.end, and here docusaurus.json, the configuration file for how the scraping should take place. Okay, so now got that all set up, we do this. Don't forget that we already have the website that was started. Now here it begins to fly, and there we go. Here we go. At the end of a successful scraping procedure or scraping operation, you'll see this line right here, NB hits 348. That basically means that 348 discrete units of the website, if you will, discrete sections of the website have been scraped, and the data from that has been sent successfully to the Typesense server. So we've done that. We've done the scraping of our standalone website and our standalone Typesense server. Now comes the proof of the pudding, if you will. We have to modify the docusaurus.config.js file so that there is a Typesense search field, and so there's access to the actual Typesense server so that a user can search in a sophisticated way and retrieve very relevant results, very relevant context-sensitive results. Now, there's a few things I've commented out from this. This is the docusaurus.config.js file that we used just a few minutes ago to launch the Docusaurus tutorial website. There's a few things I have to comment in, if you will, and you see this right here, themes, Docusaurus theme search Typesense right there. Basically that says that, okay, the theme for this particular piece of the presentation page has been defined in that theme, which I had previously pulled and put into the Docusaurus node modules subfolder. And over here, this piece right here, this is really where the search mechanism is defined in the navigation bar. Okay. Once again, the API key is there because there are going to be people who will be accessing the Typesense server where the collection is defined. And we don't have to localhost. Okay, it means it's running. Obviously, the Typesense server is held locally. The protocol is HTTP. The port is once again 8108, as we saw earlier. Now the collection name has changed. We used a different collection name that we have defined over here, Typesense Recollection. Okay, so we're going to copy this one right here and put this right here. Okay, and I'm going to save this file. And now we're going to go back to the window where we kicked off the Docusaurus site, or the Docusaurus tutorial, I should say. We're going to break it and we're going to rerun it. Chug, 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 and we're going to see what happens. And let's go open this up right here. Where were we at? Right here. Okay. Okay. It's okay, but it's still cooking right now. It's a chug, chug, chug. Hopefully we'll see right in this corner the Typesense search bar that pops up. Ah, okay. Almost there. Oh, it's taking. Ah, here we go. Okay, no need for this. Put this one away. Don't need this either. Obviously, you should leave the Typesense server running. There's no reason to turn it off while you're performing tests and while you're waiting for Docusaurus to build. But you don't need to worry about the window where you did the scraping. The scraping obviously has been finished. We saw quite a number of hits there. 348 hits, for example. And over here, the Typesense server contains all that information. Now it's just Docusaurus we're waiting for. Should just be a couple of more minutes before we will be able to see that new page with the integrated Typesense search engine. And there it is up here in the corner. Why don't we just type in something? Let's try blog, for example. And there you go, blog. There it is. Any other thing? How about translation? Translate. Okay. Okay, so there you have it. The view from 10,000 feet of how you can successfully integrate the Typesense server engine and Docusaurus.